about business, and it's Business 360 on Spectrum TV. My name is Blyden Okem. In today's coming out, the impact of that of last week and what could be seen this week. Last week, the Australian dollar against the US dollar gained as the US dollar took a hit from the inflation data coming in, not as hot as anticipated. The weaker US dollar helped commodity prices move north, with the notable exception of gold. A higher US real yield appeared to undermine the precious metal, and industrial metals drifted higher. But it was agricultural commodities that got the extra boost from drought conditions across Europe and North America impacting prices. This has the potential to compound the impact of the Ukraine war on food supply globally. Now we'll be looking at the week ahead. In the US, the center stage will be taken by the latest FOMC meeting inflation rate figures for the UK, Japan, and Canada. Other important releases include ZEW Economic Sentiment Index for Germany, industrial production for China, unemployment rates for Australia and UK, and the second quarter GDP growth for Japan. Talking about businesses, adding to a growing financial separation between the biggest global economies in the middle of a dispute about scrutiny of company audits. PetroChina Limited, China Life Insurance Limited, and China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation made no mention of the auditing disputes or US-Chinese tensions over Taiwan, security, technology, and human rights. The companies, in similarly worded statements issued, will still be traded in Hong Kong, which is open to non-Chinese investors. Washington has warned Chinese companies, including Beijing, refuses to allow regulators to see the records of their corporate auditors. American authorities have said that other governments have agreed to that step, which is required by US law, and China and Hong Kong are the only holdouts refusing to comply. China said talks are making global stock market. Saudi Aramco seemed to be in view as oil giant tops on record with $48.4 billion quarterly profit. Saudi oil giant Aramco has broken its own record with $48.4 billion, a profit for the second quarter of 2022. It is a 90% in 3 years ago. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has seen oil and gas prices skyrocket. Russia is one of the world's biggest exporters, but Western nations have pledged to curb their dependence on the country for their energy profits of any listed company. When oil prices are going up, you expect oil companies to do well, and that is what we see with Saudi company. Spain and Portugal backed Germany's call for could be operational within months. The proposal came as Europe struggles to find ways to rapidly reduce its energy dependence on Russia following the invasion of Ukraine, which has upended the power market and sent prices skyrocketing. A pipeline running through Portugal, Spain, and France to Central Europe was conspicuously absent. It's an argument right now based on the situation of Europe, as Russia seems to give Europe less gas, and Europe is doing their bit to stop that dependence on Russia. Russia's gross domestic product shrank by 4% from a year ago in the second quarter of 2022, amid the fallout from the Russia-Ukraine war and associated international sanctions, preliminary estimates showed. Russia's central bank expected GDP to contract 4.3% in the second, that GDP would shrink 4% to 6% in 2022, and that the economy will start recovering in the second half of 2023. At this point, break. When we return, Business 360 continues. Thank you for staying tuned. It's Business 360. My name is Blyden Okem. We'll be looking at Angola's economic index as inflation rate slows to and this is to 21.4% in June of 2022. It was the lowest rating that one could see, the lowest reading since April of 2020, amid the continuous strengthening of the Kwanzaa region. It was the lowest reading, according to April's picture of 2020, amid that continuous strengthening. Prices increased mostly for education at 3.5%, clothing and footwear 1.68%, health 1.64%, and alcoholic beverages and tobacco at 1.4%. So talking about economy, Nigeria's government bond 10-year yield increased to a 13-month high of 12.688%. The 10-year bond yield was 12.69% on Friday, August 12, according to over-the-counter interbank yield quotes for the government bond maturity. Next, we'll be looking at the commodity market, as steel is one of the most important materials used in construction and cars and oil. Looking at the commodity market, steel is one of the world's most important materials used in construction, cars, and all sorts of machines and appliances. By far the biggest producer of crude steel is China, and followed by European Union, Japan, United States, India, Russia, and South Korea. Steel rubber futures aged below 4,130 Chinese yuan mark in mid-August, pressured by further signs of lower demand in top steel consumer China. Industrial production levels in the country were well below expectations for July, while retail sales and fixed assets expectation also meets forecast. The data added to prolonged concerns of a crisis in the Chinese real estate sector as mortgage payment refusals deepens the poor fragile conditions for developers. Still, lower supply dented the downturn in steel prices, and data from the Shanghai metal market pointed to a 5.5% weekly decrease in. At the same time, power outages in China's Zhejiang province interrupted blast furnace operations in the area. We'll be looking at the metal market and what the market is doing this morning, talking about the London session. It had given a good performance at the Asian session, and now we'll be looking at the London session and according to what the market will display. In the current market today, the London session at a current price of 1,780.95 ounce. A dollar rather per ounce, a 1.21% drop in today's market. Silver similarly is on a downward trend with a $20.362 per ounce price at a 0.45% point drop, a 2.18% drop. Talking about copper too, there's a similar drop in copper. At current price, $3.5762 rating, at 0.1019 drop in points and a negative 2.77% drop. Talking about steel and looking at steel, currently the price of steel seems to shoot up better than it is, and a 0.17 point increase for the steel price in the market today. Platinum shows a similar drop in today's market, a huge fall of 25.65 points and a 2.77% drop in today's market, while titanium seemed to be upward in today's market. Talking about markets, we'll also be looking at what is in the energy market and regarding oil and its peculiarity in Nigeria. As Nigeria's rig count stable as OPEC reduces demand growth forecast. Nigeria's oil production remains stable in the last 3 months, albeit low, going by its rig count and production volume as reported by the latest data from the organization. The focus for this year to 3.1 million barrels per day, down by 300,000 barrels per day from its previous month estimate, given expectations of a resurgence of a COVID-19 virus. Production based on secondary sources went up marginally to 1.18 million barrels a day in July from 1.17 million barrels per day in June, just as its rig counts remain unchanged at 11 for the 2 months. Nigeria's oil production crashed by about 14.94 million barrels in the second quarter of this year, an indication that the country's oil earnings plunged by about 703.76 billion naira. Federal government, as well as operators in the oil sector, has repeatedly decried the plunge in Nigeria's oil production, attributing for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD Americas, that it will pick up the most this year, driven by US third. Nigerians would be of that thought, that the federal government ought to do more in terms of securing the pipelines against vandalism, because it's becoming a big bane to Nigeria's progress, and production costs amid increase in Brent crude and all other energy commodities are doing in the market today. It's still the London session of the market, and the outlook can be fascinating. We'll begin with the US crude, the WTI crude oil. Current price is basically 4.32% drop into this market. But Nigeria's 112 points, which is a negative 4.22% drop into this market. Natural gas is on the fall, gasoline on the fall today at 3.92% drop, heating oil the same at 3.53% drop. The energy market seemed relatively on the downward path, but $107.6 per ton, a 1.66% increase in today's market. UK gas similarly going up, and it's a big concern for UK citizens who are struggling to cope with price hikes. Ethanol going up to in today's market, naphtha on the drop, uranium, which seems to be a big energy concern because the price of uranium is relatively stable. But having good outlook is very important for businesses. We're looking at the Nigerian stock market outlook and what the stock market had done in the past week, setting the pace for what it might do this week. Billion shares in 20,074 deals last week. This surpassed the 12.85 billion naira which investors splashed on 705.6. According to data from the Nigerian Exchange Group, the financial sector or services industry was the top performing sector with invested 1,230 deals last week. The top 3 equities occupied the top 3 equities by measure of volume, according to last week's data. They accounted actively. Also, Ikeja Hotel gained 30 kobo to move from 97 kobo to 1.1 naira 27 kobo per share, while cost at 0.5 kobo per share. Well, let's have a quick outlook of today's market, talking about the Nigerian stock market. Looking at the performances of the top companies in today's market, it's still the early hours, 11. So some few hours to see what the market closure would be like. In today's market, early market seem to be, we're looking at an 80-point share increase, which gives the day's percentage increase at 6.15%, and 6.5 drop in today's market. In about Okomo oil palm, the current share price is at 100 drop in the early trading in the Nigerian stock market at 9.96% drop. And talking about Presco hits a price of 142 and seems to 15.8 points at noon hour. Current price market a negative 9.97% drop, and Owan Salt Nigeria seem to be on the positive at current price 11 point. The salt company National Salt Nigeria isn't on the negative in today's market. This is the much we can take on the stock market outlook. Not to begin the week on the negative. It is an exciting week, giving a pointer to what might happen. I will go on Business 360 in today's business analysis and business outlook, looking at the various aspects of businesses from the stock market to the currency market and the global stocks. I'm excited to be your host in today's edition.